Hey there, goblins. This is Goblin Salvage Rights. My name is Robert.
And I am Erik.
And today's episode is our top five archetypes.
I have 5. You have 5. Is that 10 or is that still a top 5 list?
I can't count. With the number of
We're goblins, we don't need to count.
Number of honorable mentions I've got on this list, it might as well be a top 30.
Same. So you had items you wanted to make the top 5, but you had to kick them off, right?
First, I made honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
Then I made my top 5 list, which was a top 12. And then I cut them down and moved all of my cuts into my honorable mentions.
There can't be that many archetypes floating around out there by now. How many archetypes do you think there are?
Before we get into that, I want to thank one of our patrons.
Oh, yeah.
JP.
John Paul.
The artist goblin. Thank you, JP.
Thanks, JP.
You rock.
You rock.
Yeah, so I counted up all of the archetypes, and there are 140.
There are not 140 archetypes.
I'm not done. There are 140 archetypes, and then there is one class archetype, multi-class archetype for each class. So there's a total, if I'm counting correctly, I could be wrong, of 162.
Where are they?
As of the book with the
Treasure Vaults just came out like last week, right?
Book with the things in it.
Yeah. Okay, so I know some of these things are hiding in the back of AP volumes. There's probably some floating around adventure modules. Every book we're looking at here on the table probably has some tucked away in there somewhere.
Practically every book has something for players.
I was expecting the answer was going to be like 50 or so, but it's like triple that.
100.
That's nuts.
162 last I counted.
So our top 5 is the cream of the crop.
It's the creme de la creme. Frankly, a lot of the ones I picked, I haven't even played completely. They're ones I desperately want to play. They just haven't fit into a character yet.
I played a couple of mine, but this is also a wish list for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we jump into that, you played a game recently.
Did I? I had COVID like a week ago.
You ran Edgewatch before that.
Oh, I didn't I?
And I wasn't there because
you weren't there. Yeah. Okay. Well, the game was pretty magnificent. It's not because you weren't there, I promise. I had 3 players at my table, and that's my sweet spot. I will do a 4-player table. I will reluctantly, begrudgingly do a 5 if I happen to like everybody. And I do. But a 3-player table is my sweet spot because I get to spend time on everybody. And 2 people will be active, and another person can take a breather. And then somebody needs a breather, and then another 2 people, we can shift to them. So 3 always keeps the momentum going. Pacing's always awesome. So what did I do? I didn't do a dream sequence. I think this time I wanted to plug some holes in my narrative. I got a lot of NPCs. I got a lot of storylines going on. City at the center of the world, big-ass festival, World's Fair kind of thing. There's a lot going on, and it's easy to lose track of details. So I ran 3 vignettes that took place at different points in the past, our timeline. So we're presently in, what are the last 2 digits of the year? 20, I think. So the first vignette took place when the 3 players were kids. They were like 9 years old, and certain things happened during their childhood that have repercussions into today's timeline. So I did that, and I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details here because it's still a spoiler to you. The second vignette, we skipped to that, and then it happened nearer in the timeline.
Yeah,
some things got explored, right? And NPCs kind of got, teased out. And I connected NPCs in ways that hadn't been done so previously. And then a decade later, it matters. And then there was a third vignette that took place even more closely in the timeline.
Jesus.
So I was trying to fill in gaps in the story in exciting ways. And this is really the fun part that I did. For all 3, I handed my players character sheets and said, play these.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the first one, everybody was a clutch of kobolds in the silver mines. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And they got to play the NPCs in the adventure that you guys played in the very beginning of this campaign. So it was a story of how they came to Absalom to work on the pagoda and, the whole union thing. The second one was more of an infernal story that took place in the city of Dis. And there's a bearded devil running around in Absalom, and you guys have been hanging out with Barnabas and asking him questions. And this was a story of what he's doing here. And I handed everybody, the battle cards for Pathfinder for imps, little devils. And they played a trio of imps, pulling out dresser drawers in the precinct in the city of Dis, throwing scroll work all over the place, contracts everywhere. and
That's fucking
minding the
awesome.
fort.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
And the third one, and this is when I did a bait and switch. Some of them played their characters as young kids. Some of them did not. So it was a little bit of a tomfoolery because, hey, that's fun. But I wanted to get that switcheroo in there. I get you guys kind of thinking, I know where this is going. Okay, great. I see the pattern. And then that's when I just fucking pull the sledgehammer out.
Hell yeah.
And hit Jacques in particular over the head with it. It was just a lot of fun. Anyhow, I find that my excitement is at its height when I'm running for 3 players specifically.
Gotcha.
So I think everybody else had an amazing time too. We went and we had ramen afterwards, and then we went and hookah afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
So it was one of those games. Have you had those games where you're there for 5 hours at the table?
Oh yeah.
And you keep the party going.
Oh yeah.
And you talk about that fucking game for the rest of the night.
Absolutely.
So it's like it doubled the length of it. It was an amazing experience for me, a top tier experience.
That's rad.
I wish you could have been there. You would have just adored it.
But would it have been as fun with the 4 people?
It would have for different reasons.
Okay, yeah.
I wouldn't have got my trio fix,
Mhm.
but it still would have been tight because of the vignette approach that I did,
Yeah.
which I want to do a video on, like how to do vignettes to fill in the blanks on your GM narrative.
We should write that down.
So that'll be later.
How to
So,
do vignettes.
yeah.
Well,
And why they matter.
why they matter. Absolutely. Yeah. So today's topic is archetypes.
Archetypes, and there's a lot of them. You just said there's like going on 150 of them.
Yeah.
They're not all the same.
162, yeah.
They're different kinds of archetypes.
Absolutely.
And how do you even know, one, where to find the damn things?
Mhm.
Because they're in all these different books. 2, which ones are even worth looking at? And 3, what do they add to your gaming experience? So those are the 3 questions I tried to come to the table with as I was doing this list.
First, I want to start off with a caveat.
Caveat.
The caveat
Hit me.
is we play all of our games with the free archetype variant rule. None of these options would be as good. And frankly, my list would be completely different.
Yeah,
if
100%.
we weren't using the free archetype alternative rule from the Game Mastery Guide.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people online who talk about it. This honestly, the free archetype rule is its own episode discussion. For the most part, we could talk about the implementation of it for hours.
Mhm.
All I want to say on the topic is our groups are a bunch of people who use it to make characters cooler. And except me, I use them strictly to make them better. But no, in all seriousness though, I think that it's easier to balance a party. It's easier to balance monsters around a party than it is to balance a party internally.
Yes.
So I actually don't care if it makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, arguably. I mean, there are some niche cases where it does, but beyond that level of min-maxing, which is actually fairly difficult, because of the way that the action economy is structured and the way the game is just balanced internally. It's very hard to break this game.
It really is. I think the only time I would be a little hesitant to add things onto a basic class like an archetype is if you're talking about dual classing, which is its own beast.
Yeah, that literally does break the game.
But any of the available archetypes, whether it's a class, a multi-class, basic archetype, the encounter balance is more or less the same, at least from everything that I've seen.
Absolutely.
I don't know how that holds up at 20th level, but we'll find out soon enough, and then we can report on that. So caveat heard. So how did you approach this list? It's a top 5. There's 160 plus. What did you have a thought process? Were you trying to aim for something?
Yeah, I looked at the list and I was like, what are the cool ones I want to play?
Cool. What are your criteria for cool?
Cool is it evokes the archetype itself creates some kind of extra ability or extra element that I wouldn't be able to find within the class. So a lot of my honorable mentions are what I like to call the vanilla options. There are a lot of the, you get access to armor, you get access to a familiar, you get access to these core mechanics that classes have.
Sure.
That aren't jam-packed full of flavor. You can make them full of flavor. Don't get me wrong. The wizard that wears full plate is its own thing. And you can do that with Sentinel. But in my mind, these are the ones I really, really want to play because they just immediately evoke a character in my mind.
Okay.
they boom, and the ones that boom the strongest, the ones that blow up the strongest, the ones that are one to play the most,
Sure. They make your brain light up.
that make my brain light up, are in my top
of the
5.
list. Yeah, I took a similar approach. If I line up 100 fighter builds all the way up to 20 in my brain, they all look the same. If I line up 100 rogue builds in my mind, they all look the same. You know, when you line up all these martial classes, they're kind of samey more or less as you get all the way through.
I don't agree with that, actually. I think that the amount of when you they may look the same from a 4,000 feet view, but the second
That's the view I'm talking about.
Okay, but the second you dig down just a little bit, you realize that almost every class and every archetype, like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, has never created there's never been a system in the D&D sphere, I want to say, you know, that where you can play such a diverse cast of characters based off on your feat and ancestry choices.
Sure. But if there's like 100 fighters and they're all on a wall and you're looking at all of them and that's all they are fighters, that's different than if you have 100 fighters where one is a fighter, juggler, archer.
Absolutely.
You know, something else. Another one is a fighter, sorcerer, golem grafter. You know, all of a sudden we've got some distinction between them and my mind movies start to kick off.
I feel like normal classes are already pretty 2-dimensional.
Oh yeah.
Because you have a really interesting ancestry background and class.
It's a black and white movie and you have to rely more on the script.
Yeah. Whereas adding the free archetype really creates a 3-dimensional character.
Yeah, it creates diversity and
it's just insane.
It gives world building tools from the player to the GM.
Absolutely.
Usually it's the other way around in the paradigm that I've been exposed to for 30, 40 plus years.
100.
But this archetype system, when every one of my players hands me their archetypes, the stories write themselves.
Absolutely.
The NPCs write themselves. The organizations behind those NPCs write themselves. So it's a tremendous story building tool. And that's why I picked my top 5 the way I did. I picked my top 5 to be sort of like my dream list of things I want to play and things I have played and I want to explore more. That was one thing. The second thing was if I line up, 100 wizards and, can they look different aside from whatever school they happen to be a wizard of? I want to be able to see all of these different kinds of people do different things and look and feel different ways.
Oh shit, Eric. Okay, so Eric messaged me before the pod and he said, Robert, I'd bet money that our top 5 does not overlap in the slightest.
Well, with 162, I thought those were good odds.
Am I
wrong?
Pretty good, but I don't know.
I think there's going to be one now that I've thought about it since I made that statement.
I think there's going to be at least one. Yeah,
at least one.
At least one.
Well, do you think it's smarter if we do our special mentions before or after?
Yeah, I want to do that. Let me just get the caveats out now.
Okay, let's do it. Keep going.
Okay, so honorable mentions right up front. I'm just going to spit out all of the quote unquote good archetypes. If you're min-maxing a character, you're probably going to pick up one of these level 2 so that you can fill out your character's build in a way.
So if you have a spreadsheet brain out there and you're looking for crunchy archetypes that work,
absolutely,
Robert's the list you want to pay attention to.
Okay, so medic makes you amazing at medicine skill.
100%, yes.
Period. Bastion gives you armor. Familiar master.
Love it.
So familiar master gives you access to a familiar, period, and it makes them super good really quickly. If you already have a familiar, it makes them even better because it gives you access to the special familiars even sooner. The thing is, if you have a class that relies on focus points, having a familiar is incredibly amazing. If you're a psychic, you take familiar master to maximize your character because psychics rely on focus spells. And there's one master ability in the familiar thing that basically lets you turn your familiar into a focus pool battery. Yeah. Where you can just like drain its essence and gain back one of your focus points.
Did they do all this cool shit with familiars in first edition?
No.
This is a 2E thing.
This is a 2E thing.
So for those of you who are coming over from 5E,
oh yeah.
This is a really cool perk.
Familiars are next level. They they have,
and they're just fun.
You pick 4, I think it's 2 or 4 feats baseline. And those things describe half of them are abilities that the familiar has, like opposable thumbs, or it can fly, or it can speak, or it can do these things. The other half are like called master abilities or something like that, where basically they're abilities that the familiar gives to you. And one of those is you can just drain its essence for like 1 or 2 actions and gain back a focus point. I think it's 1 action.
That sounds mean.
you can burn all 3 of your focus points because by the time you get any good focus spells, generally you have 3.
Mhm.
And then you can, so that's 3 rounds right there of used actions. And then you can drain your familiar for another one. So that's 4. And then if you're a wizard, you can drain your bonded item for 5.
Yep.
It's just,
It gets bonkers and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. If you
Familiar
have,
Master is a solid call.
Yeah.
And it didn't make your top 5.
No, that's just not, I tried to stay away from the ones that were just mechanically interesting in my mind.
Who are you?
I know.
I don't know this person.
So next up is Dual Weapon Warrior. This is a crowd favorite in the Munchkin scene.
Mhm. Sure.
Um,
It's a solid archetype.
it's fucking awesome. It gives you access to a bunch of great feats.
Yeah, my shitty dwarf had it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. Beastmaster is an obvious choice because it's like
Top tier.
it's just like you get a pet and it's actually good. It's not like in previous editions where if you took like the side grade to get the pet,
Sure.
it would be bad all the time and be like 4 levels behind the whole party and just die immediately.
Mhm.
No, it's actually like on par with a normal class.
Yeah, and it has deep roots in fantasy literature.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It goes back a long
And
way.
it's literally like pick a class, give it a pet.
Mhm.
Like that's honestly just like awesome.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And then
Every ranger at every table anywhere has that.
well, yeah, but like rangers don't need it for the most part. But like
Right.
you could have a fighter
Sure.
with a pet. You could have
That's the cool thing about archetypes. Like
barbarian with a pet.
Yep.
You know, it's just almost always
an angry little honey badger pet.
Exactly. And then last but not least, I have more honorable mentions, but these are the honorable.
Sure.
My second class of honorable mentions.
You only get 62 honorable mentions, Robert.
Blessed One.
I didn't even think of that, but you're right. Yeah.
Blessed One just literally gives you land hands.
Mhm.
So here's the deal. If you're in a party where no one in the party can heal with focus points,
Mhm.
one of you takes Blessed One to A, be able to heal yourself in combat,
Mhm.
but B, be able to heal yourself out of combat because the game kind of assumes that you're fully healed in between combats and about an hour or 2 has gone by between combats.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking. And that means you need a way to use focus points or medicine really well to heal the party. And if you can't have medicine, Blessed One is freaking awesome because it gives you focus points and then lets you spend them on land hands,
Sure.
which is one of the best healing spells in the game.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. And that used to be the purview of like paladins and champions exclusively. And now it's kind of getting squished around.
Yeah, no,
There's
anyone can pretty
options.
much have it. And I think it's great.
Mhm.
I love barbarians can use land hands while raging. While raging. So
Okay.
I looked up the rules a while back because the Goblin Barbarian I made for Gabby's the baby kids Goblin game
Uh-huh.
is a Blessed One Barbarian because I was like,
Nice.
how can I shove more HP into this barbarian? That's right. I can heal myself while raging. Damn it.
That's right.
So
Slap yourself.
yeah. So those are the honorable mentions of just like the useful ones that I kind of put off to the side and said,
Sure.
I'm not going to do these. I'm going to do more interesting ones.
Okay.
But the ones that didn't make it on my top 5 list get another honorable mention. So you're up.
Nice. I've got 5 honorable mentions. We've got some overlap here. Beastmaster because Beastmaster, all the reasons you've said. But I'm trying to, by my selections here, I'm trying to recreate certain experiences that I've had from reading novels, watching movies and TV, reading comic books over the years. I just want to just bring some of those awesome experiences and tropes to the table, and I want to live in them. So, are you familiar at all with an old 80s movie called Beastmaster?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank God. Okay, finally. We've seen one movie.
Okay, yeah.
So
yeah,
Beastmaster,
yeah.
it's a guy, I forget his name, Dar, something like that. And he can like see through his hawk. He's got 2 cute little ferrets that he sends in for shenanigans. And he I just love the idea of being able to, just sort of like appropriate your creature's senses and then go through that part of the exploration.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. The Jungle Book arguably could be Beastmaster.
Yeah.
So I love the Beastmaster for all those reasons. The Bellflower Tiller. It's not a game-breaking archetype
How
at
is
all in
this
any way,
not-
shape, or form.
How is this not in your top 5?
You thought it was going to be, didn't you?
That was
Yeah.
like one of your favorite characters ever.
It's one of my favorite characters, and that archetype was specific to that adventure we played.
Yeah.
So it was a time and place thing.
Mhm.
I couldn't play it in any other game, any other table, anywhere. It's super specific
It would
to
be hard.
something going on
Yeah.
in Galarian at the time. So Bellflower Tiller, it kind of recreates that Underground Railroad kind of feel. When you're trying to bring a targeted population and you're trying to sneak them out of the city, and you can actually have your modifiers be affected by how many people are in your crop, they call it. And you can actually have your move speed affected in a positive manner by having people in your crop. And so you actually rise to the occasion. So there's all cool, fun little, +1, +2 kind of things and, speed movement. It's super thematic, just dripping with it. Ghoul, because undead.
Okay.
So Book of the Dead has a bunch of archetypes where you can actually play a vampire, a ghoul, a zombie. And I'm a Ravenloft kid.
Let's talk about this. So one of my honorable mentions for the ones that I took out, I just wrote all of the undead archetypes.
Yeah.
Because
just an umbrella.
The implementation of the undead archetypes to me was A, unexpected, and B, pleasantly surprising.
Yeah.
They were unexpectedly, amazingly implemented in a way that I was just like, this makes total sense.
Yeah. And there's an odd expectation that I know I had, and I think you had as well. I know other people at the table had it when we first got the book, where like, if you're a ghoul, in my case, my character, I expected to have dark vision right out the gate. That's not the case.
Yeah.
You can play a lich starting out,
12th level.
12th level.
Yeah.
That's right. Skeleton was first. But some of these archetypes, undead types.
And skeleton isn't,
they're like baby versions of what we find in the monster manual or the bestiary.
Yeah. A skeleton isn't even an archetype. It's an ancestry.
It's an ancestry.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that is an ancestry instead.
God, that book is just I've got to read more of that.
Yeah, it's
because
good. I only know that because because Alex plays Whittle Bones.
Yeah, you had to study all that more than I did. So the reason why I picked the ghoul, for a couple of reasons. One, I love Interview with a Vampire. I love those stories. Stubbs the Zombie is one of my top 5 favorite video games anywhere. And if you don't know Stubbs the Zombie, go get it right now and start playing it.
Yeah,
you can pull your head off and bowl your enemies out. You can pull your pancreas out, throw it at somebody, and it explodes. And for some reason, you have another pancreas after that.
Yeah, there's a Let's Play. Just go watch the Let's Play on YouTube. It's fucking awesome.
So Ghoul, basically any of the undeads. Dual weapon warrior, because I love Pitch Black, Three Musketeers, Gladiator. I love that knife and a phone boot kind of combat. And nothing says that better than dual weapons. Shadowcaster.
How is that not in your top 5?
This is going to be a fun conversation. It almost was.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Okay. Good.
I kept having to pull it out.
Good.
But I'm a sucker for World of Darkness. I love my vampires, Vampire, the Eternal Struggle, the Masquerade and all that. And the La Sombra, shadow magic. I mean, that's just, that's where I ate for years. And what I like about that is there's a Faustian deal with the devil kind of feel, reminiscent of the Warlock from D&D 5e.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that is something that was noticeably missing in Pathfinder 2nd edition for me. And this is the close I've come to having it. And one area on the map that I really want to explore more is Nidal, which is the realm of shadows here on the prime material plane. So that is sort of like a small wish list item that I'd like to explore more.
What about the Oracle?
Oracle of what?
No, like the Oracle. Like the Oracle mechanics are kind of like having a Faustian bargain with a deity of some sort.
Yeah, except you don't deal for anything. If you're an Oracle, something happens to you. You don't like go up and say, "Hey, you give me a curse and I'm going to take some power." It's not a deal with the devil.
I guess you could probably role
like
play
you are
it like
afflicted.
That.
By your oracular powers.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. But on Shadowcaster, it's kind of like, "Hey, kid, I got some candy in the van." That's the Warlock, my man.
Yeah, that's true. That is the Warlock.
So those are my 5. I just want to relive some of these stories. Interview with the Vampire, the Jungle Book, Three Musketeers, Faust. And I can't do that with character classes like Fighter, Mage, Wizard, Ranger, whatever. I have to do that with archetypes. And that's my big sales pitch for archetypes in general.
Okay.
There are 162 plus. That's a lot of stories you can tell that you can't tell with just classes.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
my second
special mentions.
My spec and shekel Okay, so first up, like I said, all of the undead archetypes. One of the people on our Discord, who goes by the NPC, kind of put an idea in my head, and I'm making my first piece of custom material.
All right, you're getting blamed for this because I know exactly who you are.
Yeah. So
lay it on me.
I'm cooking up a worm that walks.
Worm that walks. I knew that was coming up at some point in
for
time.
them. Not for them. I just thought it was a cool
Thanks,
idea.
dude. I'm all in.
And I could totally do it based off of the undead rules. And
sure.
What I'm trying to say here is that without this framework for how they're doing these things, I could have never done this before the undead book came out.
Like I've been throwing spaghetti at the wall until something stuck.
Throwing worms at the wall.
So see what we did there?
Yeah. So I just want to say again, I really love the implementation of the way they did that.
And again, 162 plus, that gives us a lot of patterns to look at.
Absolutely.
So as we reskin these things, which I'm going to go into as a part of my top 5, what you see doesn't have to be what you get. You can trade things in and out to evoke a similar but adjacent feel.
Yeah. Remember,
love
folks, it's your game. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep.
Like, don't let anyone on the internet tell you that you can't because it's not their game.
Or should make you feel bad for doing it.
Yeah, fuck those people. Yeah. So anyway, Undead Master is literally Beastmaster, except cooler.
Right.
It's like that meme of just like normal guy and then cool guy with glasses in the yearbook. It's literally a Beastmaster but your animal is an undead thing instead, which is just cool.
Yeah, very gothy. My little black heart is smiling.
So the other two that I pulled out were Rune Scarred.
Rune Scarred?
Yeah, I love Thessalonian magic. I love Thassalon. I love that part of Galorian lore. It's really near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's where Pathfinder got its start, wasn't it?
That's big 1E vibes. That's like literally Rise of the Rune Lords. That's first AP.
Yeah, they had the ion stones floating around their head, and then they plucked them out and like shoved them into their flesh and grafted them.
So the Rune Scarred is kind of like whatever the like basically you descended from someone who was touched by a rune lord or something like that.
Okay.
And you basically have these rune tattoos that grow on you naturally.
Okay.
And the archetype just gives you access to like a couple like spell-like abilities. Not that we don't have those anymore. Oh my gosh, I'm showing my age. But it gives you access to some spells once per day, that kind of thing, and some tiny things. I just think it's really cool.
Are we still in special mentions?
Yes.
We haven't even started.
We're still in special mentions. All right, next up is the Talisman Dabbler. So that's the other one that I pulled out. I really want to learn. Okay, talismans are bad. Talismans are bad.
Talismans are not bad.
Talismans are bad.
You just can't munchkin them very well.
Talismans are bad, and I wish that this existed earlier so I could have played with talismans a la an alchemist, because that's literally what it is. It's like you're an alchemist, but with talismans, but that's not good enough to be its own class. So here's an archetype instead. And I'm going to try this one day just to see how bad talismans are.
Okay.
That's it.
Make a Thaumaturge talisman dabbler.
But you can already do that. How about I make a fighter? Not fighter Thaumaturge. That'd actually be good. How about I make a fighter talisman dabbler that's literally a Thaumaturge, but better? Better. Exactly. And that's what I'm getting at. I want to use the archetype to see what talismans really have to offer.
Sure.
Without there being like this ginormous cost to them. But yeah, those are just the ones I pulled out of my list.
Buying talismans is garbage. So find them or make them. That's my official line.
Okay. So with that said, let's actually get into the top 5. So
you go first.
Lore Master. Okay. I love being the nerd at the table.
Totally call that.
Yeah. I love being the nerd at the table. I love being able to roll a dice and know things. So Lore Master just basically gives you bardic lore, and then it allows you to put bardic lore on steroids. The archetype.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a fighter who knows things? Lore Master. Do you want to be a druid who knows things? Lore Master. Do you want to be a insert class that isn't already int-based? Or even is int-based. I mean, so Lore Master shines with int-based classes because it gives you a lore skill, and that keys specifically to intelligence. But even without that, you can make intelligence one of your secondary stats and get it to 16 pretty much immediately, or even 14. And because it's knowledge in everything, it's lore in everything, you could just always be rolling. And when you're ABR, when you're always BBRR rolling, Glengarry, Glen Ross, you can just, you're going to get knowledge checks left and right. And then later on, you get some feats that allow you to not fail them. And it's
super board gamey.
I love it.
I can see it. Yep.
I love it. I love being able to be
it's
like,
a solid pick.
tell me things.
Yeah.
And but
I'm sorry, is that American Sign Language for tell me things?
Tell me things. I just think it's really cool because you can take a one-dimensional class like the fighter or the barbarian and be like, oh yeah, but they love stories.
Sure.
Or they love learning things.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, that adds a third dimension to a class.
Yeah, it's also a great way. A great way. Hey, you poured this motherfucker.
I know.
It's a great way to let the GM sort of like shove knowledge and lore in the setting towards your specific character before everybody else. Because that's your thing, man. Whatever class you play, if you're a lore master, you ought to be getting first crack at that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, that's my first pick. It's just a cool way to be a nerd.
This is the basic archetype, right? Nothing fancy. You just tack it on any class you have.
Nothing fancy.
It doesn't modify your class. It just adds more stuff. Okay, cool.
Just adds.
All right. Well, mine's a little crunchier than that, believe it or not.
Okay.
I'm going to start with a spell shot. Cue the rolling eyes.
Oh my, yeah, okay. You played this already.
I played it and I played it wrong.
Oh, really?
And the best way to learn something is to teach someone else.
Okay.
And so I kind of started talking about the spell shot to you between episodes to try to understand it myself. So I'm just going to go down my list here of things I want to say about it. This is a mystical archetype. Mystical archetypes are archetypes that deal with spells. So whether it's like wizardly casting, sorcerer, whatever.
Hold on. Let's get into terminology real quick because we're going to confuse some people.
Okay.
So as it exists now, Paizo has done a really shit job at, there are like 5 or 7 different kinds of archetypes in the game. And frankly, Paizo's done a pretty poor job explaining to the user how these archetypes are stratified, because they do exist in different categories and different archetypes give you different levels of power. We're going to go into this in depth in later episodes.
That's a totally different video, which is coming up soon.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So with that said, that term you used, the mystical archetype,
right.
That is an Archive of Nethes organizational.
Yeah. So Archive of Nethes is the tool that most of us use in Pathfinder 2nd Edition to find stuff.
It's the PRD. It's the Wikipedia page.
Yeah. All of these books, you can just click until you find stuff, and it's organized that way.
That's why Pathfinder's free.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an organizational tool is what I mean by mystical. So let's just call it an archetype because that's what it is. It's not a class. It's not a multi-class. It's specifically,
just but what's important about it, that what makes it different than other archetypes is that it specifically modifies a class.
It specifically
gunslinger.
Yes, because it's a class archetype, which is on the next line here.
Yes.
So first of all, this is in Guns and Gears, page 140 if you've got the book, or Archives of Nethes if you don't. The spell shot, it has tags that you're going to find throughout the feat options and ability options and different things you can do as you call yourself spell shot. So if you're looking to do things associated with gunslinger, evocation magic, conjuration magic, and teleportation and abjuration, these are things that the spell shot collects to its breast, so it can make manifest really cool things that it does. So some inspirations that I found for the spell shot. Remember the movie Wanted?
No.
Okay, it's the dumb one, but it's the one where you can curve a bullet.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
It's cool from like a cinematic comic book kind of thing. That's kind of what this is. So I didn't buy it in that movie. Totally bought it in this archetype.
Okay.
Final Fantasy VIII, gun blades and basically guns that do magical things.
Okay, but that's also a different thing that the gunslinger has access to. The gunblade. That's a different archetype. They literally get a gun. That
fires magical effects and triggers magical effects.
All right,
specifically.
We're combining 2 archetypes that actually exist in the game, though, which I think is hilarious.
Sure. So the spell shot is specifically somebody who shoots a gun.
Yeah.
And that does a magical effect.
Gotcha.
So Final Fantasy VIII is just chock-a-block full of that kind of crap. Devil May Cry. You got your Hellfire shotguns and shit like that.
Yeah.
So this is some of the inspiration I think about when I think of what is a spell shot in my imagination. You can conjure bullets from the air. You can create phase bullets that go through walls and hit your target. You can fire a bullet and teleport along the trajectory path.
I love that so much.
To reach the point of impact.
It's so cool.
You can change the energy damage to exploit weaknesses with your bullets. You can counterspell with your bullets. Like fire a bullet into a magical shield of some sort, and you can counter that. You can summon your gun. You know, there are runes that do that. Well, now you can do that as an ability. So these spell shots aren't ordinary gunslingers. They come from a tradition of ancient secrets and principles, which they temper with modern innovation and perspective. Spell shots combine magical power into the art of gunplay to create a distinct and mystical way known only to spell shots, enigmatic and unavailable to other gunslingers in the world at large.
They're the druids of guns.
They're rarer than that. So this is a rare archetype, which means it's a little more powerful than
They
many of the others.
speak Gunnic.
Yeah. Sure, they speak Gunnic. That is now headcanon.
Oh my god.
But the if the gunslingers are uncommon and there aren't a lot of them out in the world, there are even fewer of these spell shots. And they're just sort of like single individuals who walk the world and do their magical way of the way of the spooky gun kind of stuff. I love it. I love the curve the bullet thing. I love the teleport after a bullet. It allows for certain stories to be told combining gunplay and magic.
Absolutely.
And that's a cool little crossroads that I don't see represented in fantasy gaming in general.
So the
I want
archetype,
more of that.
the way I was looking for,
Mhm.
which is not to be confused with an archetype, a class archetype. It's a way, which is just
Gunslingers have various ways that give them access.
It's their
to,
subclass.
ability paths.
So they also in this book, Impossible Lands, they introduced Way of the Trigger Brand.
I know nothing about that.
Really?
Yeah.
So Way of the Trigger Brand is
This is going to be a 2-hour video.
yeah, this is gonna
Bunny
be rough.
trails galore.
I'm sorry, people. Way of the Trigger Brand is basically they introduced gun blades. So literally like weapons, like swords with a gun attached to it.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Gunblade. So what you described when you
Mhm.
described the Final Fantasy VIII to me was like, oh, that's Way of the Trigger Brand because
Sure.
they literally have a gunblade.
Yeah.
Or in Final Fantasy XIV, they have the Gunbreaker, I think, or something like that. It's one of the classes in Final Fantasy XIV, the MMORPG, that one of the tanks basically is just, dude with gun sword,
Mhm.
which is cool.
Which
It's
is
just-
cool. And then add a bunch of magic and teleportation effects and
Exactly.
conjuring and abjuration specifically. And you get more like a focus. These people aren't shooting fireballs. This isn't like evocation magic.
Yeah.
I think it's not. Conjuration, teleportation,
It's
abjuration.
definitely evocation.
Evocation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the options. But there are things it is not. It is not divination. It's not enchantment.
Yeah.
There are schools of magic where it's not. And that creates a delicious focus, which leaves room for another type of way of the magic gun using the things that are not listed here for later design space.
That's a good point.
So I just dig that. I feel like I can wet my palate and have things to come.
Okay.
Spell shot number 5.
Weapon Improviser.
Talk to me about Weapon Improviser.
I've always wanted to play a class that just picks up a mug and hits you over the head with it.
Sure. That was
Very
in
well.
3.5, wasn't it?
We've had a version of this for a long time.
Sure.
The problem has
Probably
always
started out as a joke and then somebody threw crunch at it.
yeah. Someone was like, someone probably got in a bar fight, had their weapons taken from them, and started wielding.
Dragonlance had a character
Random
where a woman
items.
ran around with a frying pan and that was her weapon.
That's
so that was like
amazing.
2nd edition D&D.
They introduced the frying pan as a weapon in that book.
That's Tika Whalen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Weapon Improviser has never been very well implemented in previous editions, in my opinion. It just hasn't been optimal enough for you to want to play it. You always kind of feel bad when you run it because you're like, this is fun, but I wish it was
What
actually
makes it cool now?
it's actually good.
Okay.
So you are by level 4, I think it is. You get a feat that basically says you just get an item bonus to the things you throw around.
Okay.
And your damage increases, just like a striking rune. That's it. That's all they had to do.
Mhm.
You just can now throw rocks at people and they hurt really bad. Or you can pick up a chair and slam it over someone's head and it hurts like it should if you were wielding a sword of the equal power or whatever.
Okay.
That's what I like about it. It's just it's a very simple. There's other feats that add onto it that let you do some cool stuff. But at its core, in my opinion, it should probably be played in a city setting. Like if you're doing a city campaign
Sure.
where there are a bunch of like random things for you to grab and
Yeah.
hit people with. If you're in a forest.
The environment as character.
Yeah. If you're in a forest, the environment is very samey.
Sure.
Whereas if you're in a city or some urban environment, the environment is constantly changing and you and your DM can have this back and forth when you're like, what's around me?
Sure.
And you're like, there's a candelabra. And you're like, all right, here we go. You know what I mean? And you randomly deal fire damage.
Combine that with like a parkour kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Runner, yeah.
Give it, well, so
That could be fun.
So I wrote down, the idea of this character basically makes me, it reminds me a lot of Jackie Chan.
Mhm.
I grew up watching Jackie
Yeah.
Chan movies.
Yeah.
I love.
There's
Jackie
a lot of
Chan
physical
movies.
comedy in this archetype.
Yeah, and I just grew up watching cool kung fu movies. Like
Mhm.
I love those. I love that genre of film. And the Jackie Chan movies were always the most interesting because he would use things in his environment and turn them into weapons that you would classically find in Chinese martial arts.
Yeah, comedy as a genre is really hard to do. I don't want to say tastefully, but just like without overdoing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's really easy to just lean so hard on the funny that things just aren't funny anymore.
Mhm.
So, like Jackie Chan is a great example of how slapstick is actually fun for me to watch.
Absolutely. He's a master of it. Absolutely. So yeah, that's my number 2. I just thought it's just a fun
Can you
archetype.
pair that with the drunken monk?
You can. I mean,
Um,
monk would probably be the best place to put it.
Uh-huh.
But I can see it. Barbarian would be a lot of fun too.
Pick up a beaver dam and rage it at someone.
Exactly, because you can pair it with the barbarian abilities and feats that let them pick up really heavy things.
Sure.
So you could
Sure.
just pick up boulders and yeet them at people.
Isn't there like an oracle curse where like there's wind everywhere? And
Yeah.
I'm picturing like, somebody's coffee mug gets lifted off the table and you just grab it out of the air and
Yeah.
then throw it.
Or the wind throws it at them.
The wind throws it at them.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Wow, that's cool.
I just thought it'd be really fun. Take any martial class
Mhm.
and add this to it, and hilarity ensues.
Sure.
An investigator
Mhm.
who's using intelligence to use
Oh, totally.
items
Yeah.
that they randomly find and just yeets them at people or hits
Yep.
them with them in a very interesting way. Like you basically you roll your check to use your intelligence to attack or whatever.
Sure.
And you're like, there's a fork 2 feet away from them.
Mhm.
I run over and slam the fork. That fork ricochets and hits this thing, and then another thing falls down and hits them on the head, dealing 46 plus 5
Geometry
damage.
magic.
Exactly. It's just great.
Didn't Final Fantasy Tactics have a math tactician or something that did something like that? Isn't
No.
that like your favorite game in the entire world?
It is it's up there.
The Mathomancers? I don't know.
It's up
Anyhow.
there. I don't know about the math. No, there
Yeah.
was. Yeah, there was. I don't remember it right now, but yeah.
All right. Anything else about that one?
No, that's it.
Okay.
It's just good old fun.
That's fun. That's fun. It's interesting listening to your 5, and was that 4?
That was 4.
That was 4, and all the things you left off as honorable mentions.
Yeah.
It's just weird that this one made it.
I just really want to play it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of classes I really want to play it in.
Yeah.
Not just one class. I have 5 ideas
Mhm.
that I want to put this in.
It's the combinations I'm curious about. Like when you pair this with how many classes are there at this point?
22,
There are 22, and there's 162 archetypes, you said?
including the multi-class archetypes.
Yeah. So C3PO, do you know how many combinations you can get out of all that? I don't know, but it's a lot.
I think
So that's what's interesting to me. And when I make statements like I want to line up 100 fighters on the wall and have them all just feel different, and look different, and seem different, this is what I'm talking about. So like the fighter,
it's either 162 to the power of 162, or it's summation of 162 to 162. So 1E62 to 162.
so what I'm hearing you say is it's a lot.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, experiment with that. Number 4, Rune Lord, for a lot of the reasons we talked about.
Wait, what?
Rune Lord.
That's my number 1.
Oh, you just gave away the whole show there, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, if you pick one of mine, we
All
got to go at it.
I figured if we were going to have an overlap, that was going to be the
Yeah,
one.
absolutely.
So
All right,
let me go
let's
ahead
do
and dip into this
Go
because I
for
was
it.
noticeably quiet when you were talking about it. I love Rune Lords for
Me
so many
too.
reasons. And it is a class archetype. So again, a class archetype is an archetype that modifies primary features from your class.
a specific class that can't be played with anything else.
Yes, you can't be like a ranger rune lord. You got to be a wizard rune lord.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that. It's in Secrets of Magic, page 240 if you have the book. Some tags you're going to find as you look through all the different things you can do with this. Class, because of what we just talked about. Downtime is a tag that features. This is an archetype that lets you do things during downtime. I haven't seen a lot of those spread throughout the different archetypes. So that's cool. Skill tags, things that you can do that are skill based. I don't see a ton of that out there. There are some. They're usually like the profession types, like the jugulars.
Jugulars.
That's very different. The jugglers,
Yes.
not the juggalos. That's a very different archetype. Someday.
pretty similar, actually.
But yeah, okay. So class, downtime, you have skill, you have general tags.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say anything about meta magic. I didn't say anything about different schools of magic.
Mm-hmm.
Those tags aren't there. So how is the Rune Lord archetype not having any of those tags? And I thought that was curious. So some of the inspirations I found when I'm thinking about Rune Lores, like what characters from movies, from comics, from whatever.
Before you go, there's one that is the inspiration for why I love them so much. And I'm going to bet that you don't say it. Because it's in a completely different universe from you.
Sure, yeah. I'm not even a fake nerd. I just don't have any claim of authority anywhere within the realms of manga or anime.
Okay,
but
at least you know the genre. Yeah.
Sure. So Final Fantasy 14. Almost everything in this system, in some way, shape, or form, goes back to the Final Fantasy series. Sailor Saturn has the Silence Glaive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the fuck that is, but I googled it and it's a thing.
Yep.
And Fate Zero.
I know Fate very well.
Okay, cool. The Yellow Rose of Mortality.
Mm-hmm.
That's another example of the kind of inspiration that was drawn from. I'm willing to bet Jim Jacobs, and this is kind of his baby right here, going all the way back.
Absolutely.
Just drew from a lot of this stuff. So, oh my God, there's so much to talk about with the Rune Lord. So I'm going to try and be brief. You associate with one of the 7 rewards of rule. These are vices. Think of them as the 7 deadly sins.
It's literally the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah. So you got wrath, gluttony, and the whole 9 yards there. And each of those sins are associated with a school of magic.
Yep.
Excluding divination.
Mm-hmm.
So all Rune Lords are expected to know divination. It's just frowned upon to specialize in it. You specialize in one of the others. Mm. So if you're doing envy, you're dealing with abjuration. Gluttony is necromancy. Greed, transmutation. Lust is enchantment. Surprise, surprise. Pride is illusion. That was pretty spot on. Sloth is conjuration, and wrath is evocation, of course.
And to be clear, we had this in first edition.
Yes.
And it was awesome then.
Was it awesome then? Okay.
It was.
Did it break anything, or
it was strong?
It was strong.
Okay. But I think one of my points is that I love classes and abilities that make you sacrifice some things to get power.
Yeah.
And this is such an obvious trade-off that the power it gave you was balanced against the options you gave up. Because every time you looked at it, you would go through the major spells in that school and you'd be like, "Oh my God.
Yep.
I'm giving up invisibility."
Yeah.
That's because one of the things he hasn't mentioned yet is that when
it's probably the next line. Go ahead.
When you pick one of these schools, you cannot cast 2 schools that are already predetermined.
And what's more, you can't use staves or scrolls or wands.
They literally disappear from your spell list. The way they wrote the rules for this is as harsh as it's ever been.
Really? Okay,
yes.
That's cool.
And
I like that because I feel like if
you
don't trade, it's inviting glut. It's inviting power creep.
Absolutely.
And I've seen a lot of archetypes out there on third party, and they're just like unabashedly trying to shove power creep into this. And I'm just
not about it.
This is cool. So
this is strong. Like, don't get me wrong. This is powerful. It's rare.
It's a rare archetype.
And rare things are strong.
They're a cut above.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a cut above. This definitely adds power.
And these rare archetypes, this one in particular, you started at first level. And most archetypes, you started either second level or mid levels or late levels. This one is like right from the get-go because this archetype modifies your primary class, which is wizard. So 2 prohibited schools of magic. You don't get to use staves, scrolls, or wands associated with those schools. Focus spells are important with this particular archetype because you get a rune spell that's associated with your specialized school. And this is the part I just fucking adore. So when you're a wizard, how do you get your focus spells back? If you're just a Joe Schmo wizard.
Yes. The part of this is okay.
Yeah.
You read your spell book for 10
You read
minutes.
your spell book, or if your spell book happens to be like a bracelet with a bunch of coins on it.
Yeah.
And they have sigils for the different spells. You do that. Whatever your spell collection apparatus is, you study that for 10 minutes. How do you get it back if you're a Rune Lord?
You literally
indulge in your specialized sin.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're the Rune Lord of Wrath, and you have 10 minutes and you're trying to get your spells back, you act like an angry goose and you go chasing people down and scream at them.
And that is candy for a GM.
Yeah, it is. It is just so flavorful and fun. So the focus spells are an important anchoring point for this one of the things that this archetype leans on.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that the Rune Lords are noted for, you can embed an Aeon Stone into your flesh.
Into your head.
Into your flesh. So the artwork typically is head. I don't think it's like it specifically says you can't do it anywhere.
If you don't put it in your forehead, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
It's basically a way to have it and have access to it, because typically these things float around your head, and then people could swing with a baseball bat and knock them away.
And it's specifically
you can hide and conceal them and still be able to use them and trigger them.
Yeah.
And in the kind of campaigns I like to play in, the espionage, intrigue
Those
campaigns, that's just gravy for me.
It specifically says it acts like a wayfinder, a la the Pathfinder Society.
Yeah. These guys are also big on crafting tattoos. So tattoos are a big part of Rune Lords. I love tattoos. I wish I had more of them. But magical tattoos in this game are becoming more of a thing.
Because of the new book.
Treasure Vault just beefed it up.
Yep.
And it's just been one of the weaker parts, irritatingly enough. I tried to make a magical tattoo crafter like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it existed. There just was no material for it. And I didn't know how to not break the game by making my own. So there's that. You can counterspell other spells within your school.
Yes.
And that's legit fun.
That's fucking cool.
I love that idea. It's just a no.
Yeah.
And being able to say no.
Yeah. And the problem with counterspelling in games especially is that it's either too strong or too weak. It's the happy medium is very hard to find.
It is, yeah.
Because in order to make it strong enough for it to be fun and useful, like counterspelling as mechanic, you have to give them kind of a lot of leeway because it's almost never useful. So what I like about this is because you're sacrificing so much to have the class, it makes sense for you to be able to just cast a spell and deny something within that school.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. I bet you also like the idea of being able to gain a daily spell, like a bonus spell by sinning.
This is one of the most powerful parts of the entire class.
Yep.
Is I wrote it down. You get an extra spell of one level lower than your highest level spell.
Okay.
Which is powerful.
Yeah.
If you cast 5th level spells, you get 1 4th level spell in addition.
That's no joke.
And it has to be from the school of your sin.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's awesome. But wait, there's more.
There's so much more. I have a literal page dedicated to this.
Critical specialization effects from pole arms.
Okay.
So these are wizards that use pole arms.
All right. So this is the part where I'm like, okay, guys, I understand where we're going with this, but
So when you have a weapon,
it's bad.
Every weapon has a critical specialization effect that you may or may not have access to, depending on how good you are with the weapon.
Yep.
This is typically the purview of fighters and certain other martial classes.
All martial classes.
All martial classes?
At like 5th or 7th.
And the idea of having you mentioned like the full armored wizard in your example earlier. This is kind of in that territory in my imagination. This is like the giant staff with the big fucking blade. And they can literally take like a staff of greater fire and then stick a knife on the end of it.
This is the cool part. Okay, so canonically, the Rune Lords have had pole arms as their magical thing, and within the confines of the game, giving a wizard a weapon, a martial weapon, just isn't good. They're not going to use it. You know what I mean? But to be fair to them, it's very, very flavorful. Whether or not you use it, you're walking around with it, which is cool. And you
it's not like you're going to get into melee combat with your shitty little hit points.
Exactly. And you can use it if you need to. What's cool is that I think at 8th level, I forgot to write down the level of the feat, you can literally fuse a polearm with a staff you use.
Yes.
Now that
staff.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Where else do you get that?
Nowhere else in the game.
Yeah. And so it's a way to realize a power fantasy without fucking around too hard with your primary class.
And you got to spend one of your archetype feats on it. But boy, howdy, is it a cool fucking feat.
Yeah, exactly. And you only have 2 hands. So it's not like you have a polearm in one hand and your staff in the other.
Exactly.
It's economy, people. Action economy and then hand economy.
So is that what the kids are calling it?
That's a new one. TM.
So one of the things I really love about this class is that it's really archetype is that it's really easy for the player, especially newer players, to lean into their vice and make it a lot of their character. There's a lot of role playing that's pretty straightforward on the table, and I like that. I like that, if you're the gluttony or the greed person, let's say I'm the greed guy, it's really easy for me to focus on that and make that the central point of my character to a point where it becomes trite, because that's the point. That's the character.
Mhm.
That's the 7 deadly sins.
Sure.
So the anime that you're missing out on is this one of the most famous manga and anime probably in history. It's Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
And in it, they have, well, you know FMA, really?
Well, through you, yeah. How many
Oh,
hours
okay.
have you
That's-
talked and
that's-
tried to get me to watch this
That's
thing?
fair. So in FMA, the whole like crux of the entire story is the 7 deadly sins.
Mhm.
And each of the major antagonists represents one of them. So growing up watching that show and reading that manga.
Oh, no wonder you love the Rune Lord so much. Yeah.
They're
It hit all the notes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you help me with something? I didn't quite understand what it meant by this. So there's something about this archetype where you have additional class feats that can count towards your archetype quota.
Yeah.
I read that. Can you explain what that means to me and everybody here?
If I remember correctly, you get access to other feats within the wizard thing. It's basically like, you know how you can, you know how you have like, you can't multi-class out of your archetype unless you've taken 2 other feats outside of your
Dedication plus 2?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Other wizard feats you get count towards that.
Okay. Is it wizards or is it wizards and maybe fighter as well? Or
Pretty sure it's just other wizard spells.
okay.
Or wizard feats. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I normally,
That part I was super fuzzy on.
because of the way that we run our because of the free archetype ability, I always gloss over those clauses because they're almost never applicable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you get it for free anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter.
Cool. How about I read this next part and then I'm ready to move on. And then
Cool.
when we get to your number 1, anything you think of between here and there?
I'll just
we can keep
finish
going.
off the.
Okay.
We covered almost everything.
Okay, cool. So, what is a Rune Lord? For those of you who don't know and haven't been around since the beginning of Pathfinder, you've learned arcane magic following the path of the Rune Lords. You unlock secrets of a chosen school of magic while forsaking lesser schools. That forsaking is a huge thematic part of this choice. You succumb to sin in your pursuit of power. You also learn to use polearms, the signature weapons of the Rune Lords. You can acquire the secrets of the mighty ancient magic items called Aeon Stones and embed them into your skin. So polearms, Aeon Stones, magic tattoos, sin for power. It's its own thing. And no other archetype that I've come across so far is quite so specific as and so just vibrant as this. There are others on this list that I like more than this.
Yeah.
But this is probably the most fully realized, and I can only get this in Pathfinder. I can't get this in D&D. I can't get this in GURPS. I can't get this anywhere else. Well, maybe in GURPS.
If you play GURPS, hit us up in the chat. I want to know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I just adore it. I adore the art. I adore the crunch. I adore the fact that this is rare and there shouldn't be 5 around your table.
No.
Unless it's a one-off big bang thing.
Or, okay, this kind of gets to an idea that, so originally the free archetype was introduced as a way for your party to all have the same kind of archetype. So if you're a group of pirates, you could all be one person could be a druid pirate, the other person could be a fighter pirate, you know, so on and so forth, kind of like a thematic theme.
Mm-hmm.
You could play a Rune Lord game.
Sure.
Where the party at level 1 discovers, or level 0, discovers some rune magic.
Mm-hmm.
And bada bing, bada boom, you all get imbued with one of the sins of your choice.
Yep.
Obviously, because for story reasons, none of you pick the same one. But then you all go around trying to become the new Rune Lords together.
Sure, yeah. There exists a trilogy of adventure paths. There are 3 separate adventure paths, total of 18 volumes, that deal with Rune Lord lore and NPCs and characters and history and all of that. So just Google Rune Lord. There's plenty there to go with. If you like any of what you hear, there's plenty more to go. So that's my number 4, Rune Lord.
And that's my number 1. Pathfinder Agent.
Oh, God. Okay, you're going to have to sell me on this one.
Okay.
I wanted to love this so much, and I don't. So what do you got?
All right. Pathfinder Agent. So the Pathfinder Society is the most robust story anchor in all of Golarion.
Yes. There's even a book somewhere. You probably
don't have it.
Okay.
But I almost bought it. So playing a Pathfinder Society agent is really easy. It makes sense to find them literally anywhere in the entire game.
It's almost like a guild experience.
Effectively, yeah.
Right.
It's one of those. It's okay. So this gets to I've always wanted to play a very, very classic Pathfinder experience
Mhm.
where the players are playing in an adventure where the assumption is that you're all part of the Pathfinder Society. But I
Mhm.
don't want to play in organized play.
Right.
I want to play a table game, a normal game where we're all Pathfinders.
Yeah. So Pathfinder, just to take a minute,
Yeah, do it.
Pathfinder Society means two different things.
Yes.
There is a Pathfinder Society within the world of Galarian where they sort of go out and they explore the world and then they come back and report on it so we can accumulate more knowledge of what exists within the canonical world. There's also an in real life Pathfinder Society, which is organized play. You go to conventions, you play in Pathfinder Society games.
Yes.
They last about 4 hours. You add points and you pick up that character and you cross state lines and go play in another game.
It's
and
a
it
lot of
all
fun.
counts. And it's full of a bunch of great people who are so fucking passionate about this. And these people have put in like 600 hours worth of GMing at these things. So the Pathfinder we're talking about is obviously the Archetype.
Mhm.
In-world Pathfinder Society versus
Right.
the Outworld one.
And an important thing to keep in mind is when you're doing those Pathfinder Society organized play events, you're playing a Pathfinder Society member. You have to be a Pathfinder
Mhm.
because the whole crux of it is you go on these one-shot adventures where the Pathfinder Society sent you out to go do a thing.
Sure.
Okay. So I've always wanted to play an adventure where we're all Pathfinders.
Mhm.
And
I did not know that. This is the first time I'm hearing this.
okay, yeah. I've always wanted this. It's got to be an awesome dungeon crawl
Mhm.
with cool espionage and the inner workings of the Pathfinder Society pulling and tugging at the player's desires.
Sure.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's different factions within the society too, and they're
Exactly.
not always on the same side.
Exactly. So what's cool about it is because they dedicated an entire book to this one archetype effectively,
Mhm.
or to this thing. I'm now don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's true. This is the archetype with the most amount of feats in it.
It wouldn't surprise me if it has a whole fucking book dedicated
Exactly.
to it,
So what that means
and
is
deservedly
the
so.
options are really robust,
Mhm.
which means that every class can take this archetype and not feel bad.
Sure.
If you're playing in that pirate game where you're all pirates, the wizard's going to feel like, okay, I had to take the pirate thing, but I would have preferred to take something else.
Sure.
With the Pathfinder agent, everyone has an option that's actually fucking cool.
Mhm.
So it's a
Yeah,
really
you're right.
robust
There's a lot more
option.
diversity within this one than
Exactly.
others.
If anything, it's statistically the most diversity from what I've seen.
Mhm.
And I think that's really awesome. I think it's probably the most flexible of all the classes to apply to anyone, or of the archetypes to apply to any class.
I bought that book and have yet to break it open.
Well, you got to send it my way and I'll dig through it.
I may have to. I mean,
Yeah.
if you like it enough to make it your top
Mhm.
5 out of 160 plus, then hell,
It's just so classically Pathfinder. It's
it really
on
is.
the name.
It's quintessential.
on the book.
Rune Lords and Pathfinder
Exactly.
Society.
So it's just so quintessential and integral to
Turbo
the
fun.
game.
Yeah.
So it had to be in my top 5. I'm gonna play a Pathfinder agent, even if none of the other players are in my party are.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be getting instructions from the Pathfinder Society when we go dungeon delving, and I'm gonna be grabbing things that the other party members aren't even paying attention to, or I'm gonna be taking.
See, you would be
carving.
doing that as a linguist, anyways. And yet, sitting across the table from you, my imagination lights up when you're doing it as a member of the Pathfinder Society,
Exactly.
versus as a linguist.
Because it has a different connotation to it.
It does, yeah.
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 And it allows the DM to really pull in and out different strings and different drop little nuggets, and it just adds so much more.
I don't hate that choice as much as I thought I was going to, but I certainly didn't expect it to be on your list, so that's cool. Sleepwalker, number 3.
What?
Right?
Okay. This is from
I got to be careful about this one because
this is from the occult, right?
this is from Dark Archives.
Dark Archives, yeah.
Page 206.
Yeah.
Dark Archives is, I haven't read enough of that book. I tried to blow through the Thaumaturge so I could be, in your game and play it. And I'm not playing it very well at all. But I didn't read the rest of the book. And there's so much in that book that is so just juicy and
That
cross-applicable to so many other adventuring
book,
styles.
it's right here. This is easily one of the most complex books ever written in Pathfinder. It has so much in one. This is easily this is the best bang for your buck of any book they've published.
Really? More so than Book of the Dead?
Yes.
They're both up there, but that one's
they're
a cut
neck
above.
and neck. They're neck and neck. But I would say, I would say that Book of the Dead more than likely inspired the style of Dark Archive. But
Sure.
what Dark Archive gives you is 2 classes.
Mhm.
One of which is incredibly complicated and hard to play.
It makes my head hurt in unfun ways. But
Thaumaturge is, it should have been an uncommon class. If it was labeled as no, it's not. The only two uncommon classes are the inventor and the gunslinger. Yeah. So yeah, I think it should be considered uncommon just because of how complex the class is. It's one of the few classes you can make in the game poorly and you'll really feel bad.
Yeah.
And one of our friends, Aspen, is playing one that isn't optimized because it's so not obvious what optimized looks like for the class. That
it's still fairly soon since this book came out.
It's the closest thing to Warlock that Pathfinder has. And similarly, it's very easy to fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, pretty much everything in 5th edition is easy to do well. The Warlock is probably the more complicated of all the classes.
Sure. So let's talk about the Sleepwalker.
Yeah.
It's an archetype. It's in Dark Archives. Some of the tags you're likely to find as you dig through the Sleepwalker. You're dealing with enchantment. You're dealing with mental traits. You're dealing with the occult, divination, fortune, abjuration. Some of the inspiration I derive when I read through the Sleepwalker archetype, the graphic novel series The Sandman, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the movie Inception by Christopher Nolan. And I know that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But Inception as a movie. So all of these involve a Sleepwalker in my brain. So you can go into a trance to buff your will and mental saves. You can slip into someone's dream to uncover hidden information that they're concealing from you in the waking world. You can cast dream-related spells. That's fun. You can cast a focus spell, which is a waking dream, being able to manipulate other people's understanding of whether they are in the waking world or the non-waking world, issues of the subconscious. You can implant suggestions within dreams, not necessarily like having coffee in the primaterial plane. Yeah. You can ward allies against dream magic. So all of those hags running around through the bestiary.
Hyper specific.
It's really hyper specific.
When it's a problem, God damn it, aren't you happy that you have a fucking Sleepwalker?
Again, I'm going to point back to archetypes being a way for players to hand tools for world building to the GM. If the GM doesn't use anything that the Sleepwalker archetype provides, the GM's not doing their job. So it needs to be there. If it's hyper specific, then it needs to be made applicable and general by the GM.
It's an invitation to the GM to make content for them.
Yeah, I think it's a requirement. But yes, yeah. Dream sharing, that's cool.
That's cool. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
Dream sharing is cool. Wish we could do it.
Think about the adventures I like to play, the spy stories, espionage, the thrillers, and we can't talk. There's ears everywhere, and there are arcane means of divining our words. I'll meet you on the dream side.
Dream. Oh my God.
And I come find you in some shitty little nightmare where you're biting your pillow.
You know, this is like the fantasy version of Ready Player One.
Oh yeah. What do they call that? The lit RPG genre is chock-a-block full of this archetype.
Right.
Yeah. So Ready Player 1, Player 2, and a few others. Many think of mental realms and mindscapes as rare and elaborate constructions, forgetting that everyone creates their own mental realm when they sleep. One where even the strongest occurrences seem perfectly normal. Anything's possible inside these dreamscapes, but few sapient creatures have the will and the insight to take control of that space and truly explore their unconscious mind. Sleepwalkers dedicate themselves to unlocking the secrets of the sleeping mind, taking control of their dreams, and walking through the slumbering vistas of others. Some are nefarious manipulators, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, whispering to the slumbering for personal gain. Others use their powers for good, seeking evildoers and those who corrupt dreams to nightmares. Sandman. As their power grows, a sleepwalker's appearance gradually becomes slightly indistinct, as though they were blurred around the edges, and those who encounter them find it difficult to recall exact details about their appearance. I made a comment in some other video once upon a time we did where there was a class I didn't like because it was the investigator, because it required the GM to behave in a certain way. It didn't give them the choice.
Because I played it.
I played it and then you played it, and I experienced it on both sides of the table, and it was just, it felt manipulative of the GM. This is the flip side of that coin. The GM needs to use this, but it doesn't feel like a manipulation thing. It's not like, tell me where the secret door is in this room because it's odd, like the investigator might. This is more like fucking around with dreams, telling me a story, make me believe I'm actually seeing this when I'm actually dreaming it, or am I dreaming it, but I'm actually seeing it in the waking world? The same, neither. There's a lot of cool sort of mysteries you can run around in.
It's a cool challenge for your GM.
It's a big challenge, yeah. If they're up
and
for
I'd
it.
say that a little piece of advice for GMs who have to deal with this or something similar to it, believe it or not, the more vague you are, the better. Because if you're more vague, that means you can add detail in later. Especially you can let the player add that detail in and just acknowledge that.
Yeah, as long as
that's what happens.
As long as they're fair about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if they pretend that they've seen something or had an experience, you can pull the rug out from underneath them.
Yeah.
And be like, no, that never happened. And they're like, oh, it's all a dream.
So I'm going to go back to my inspiration because I think that's really the crux of why this is like right smack dab in the middle of my top 5. The Sandman series, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Inception. I can't play those games in Dungeons and Dragons. I can't play them in Vampire: The Eternal Struggle. Maybe you can play them in Changeling: The Dreaming. I don't know. But this is a way for me to get that here in this system that I adore.
Pathfinder, yeah.
So Sleepwalker is my number 3, and I'm proud of it.
Damn. All right. Well, my number 4 is my last one.
Did you finish your drink?
Fuck, I did, yeah. I drink too quickly.
I'm going to chug, and you might have to finish my list for me.
That's why I normally drink beer. I drink too quickly. Okay. I think it's pretty well established that I'm a fan of Final Fantasy. So it should be no surprise that...
Are you talking or am I?
Time Mage.
Oh my God. I haven't read this at all. So
really?
School me.
Okay.
It's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it.
Sweet. Yeah, it's in Dark Archive. They introduced the Chrono Skimmer and the Time Mage. The Chrono Skimmer is the kind of melee version of Time Magic, and the Time Mage is the caster version.
Sure. Gotta have one of each.
I love Time Magic as like this meta kind of thing because it plays with some of the rules and some of the assumptions of TTRPGs to begin with. Because as you've probably seen in one of our episodes, if not, go check it out. Pathfinder and TTRPGs kind of live in the 4th dimension in that we can fast forward time, we can dilate time, we can move it around, and Time Mages play with that idea in a way that's really fun and really cool. You start the archetype at 6th level, which I love.
Okay, so it's a mid-game archetype.
I really love archetypes that start a little later because your character's already a little well formed.
Yeah, and they start out chunkier.
Exactly. And you can actually give them, it feels like a prominent big movement.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to take this archetype for my druid that I'm playing in the Abomination Vaults game.
Oh my God, that would be fun to run like as your
Time
GM.
Mage druid.
Oh, Oliver. Oh,
A Time Mage druid.
yeah.
Like you normally think of a Time Mage as like some nerdy wizard, but when it's someone who deals with nature, you can think about it as like, well, time is just the ultimate extrapolation of nature.
Sure. Yeah.
You know? And that's how I'm going to play it, especially because they're a very leaf oriented druid. There's leaf order and they're the animal order, but they took the trend.
Foliage.
So they're all about trees and plants and stuff like that.
Sure.
And trees live forever, much longer than most sentient creatures.
Yeah,
You
it's
know
not
what I
about
mean?
minutes and weeks and years. It's about seasons and epics.
Exactly. So they have a bunch of cool.
Disasters.
They have a bunch of cool focus spells that are really interesting and mechanically very cool. Their focus spells are good. So if you have a caster class that has a bunch of focus spells that you normally only use outside of combat, like the healing berry or whatever, for druids or whatever, I very rarely use that in combat. I almost only use it out of combat. It's a good way for you to spend your focus points on cool things, and they just have really awesome flavor to them. They let you precognitively roll dice. And
can you pair this with like a rogue or an oracle or a ranger, or does it have to be a wizard?
It has to be a caster.
Has to be a caster.
Has to be a caster. The like I said, the Chrono Skimmer is the martial version of this. So you know,
that's why I was wondering.
Exactly, and it has its own tricks, but in my opinion, this is a better implementation of it. Just in my own headcanon, I'm sure the Chrono Skimmer is great. It just doesn't catch my eye as much as the Time Mage does. One of the best feats ever written for Pathfinder is given to the Time Mage. It's called What Could Have Been. I think it's an 8th level feat, an 8th level archetype feat. And basically what it does is it augments all of your summoning spells so that instead of summoning a creature, you summon an alternate dimension of yourself that is that creature into reality. So if you summon a bugbear, let's say I'm just playing around, a devil, a demon, some sort of thing, that is you can make it an alternate dimension version of you. So you in a different dimension as that thing. Like think like almost like Rick and Morty, the multiverse of Ricks and Mortys. You summon that into your.
This is a meme archetype. You're creating memes.
So fucking awesome. I love it so much. I love summoning in the game, just period.
Yeah.
So the idea of summoning the alternate dimension swarm version of my character, who's just a swarm of rats, is like
swarm of rats with little Robert faces on them.
I love it, exactly. It's so good. It's so good.
Somebody's making that GIF right now.
And then there's a bunch of other just cool feats that are really they're just very thematic to the time mage. It gives it a very good they do a good job of where the mechanics reflect the flavor.
Sure.
They're all really impactful. They don't feel like you don't feel like you're wasting your time. It's just cool.
Yeah. They
added some custom spells and stuff, some new focus spells and some new stuff to the book that you get not exclusive access to, but you get access to, which is really cool too. So yeah, Time Mage is my number 2. We already talked about my number 1, so I think we'll take it away.
Well, I got 2 more here, and how long have we been doing this?
Let it rip. Just let it rip.
Just let it rip. I'm going to let it rip. And I'm really excited about this one because this didn't exist before about a week ago. This is the Ursine Avenger Hood archetype.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you're crinkling your brow. So here it is. This is an artifact archetype. That's what Archives of Nethys is calling it. So basically, it's an archetype that's wrapped around an artifact, a physical thing that you hold on to. It's in the Treasure Vault book, page 183, for those of you following along. And certain tags you're going to find as you go through your options are Conjuration, Primal, Summoning, Divination. This is the domain of the Ursine Avenger Hood. So, things that you can expect. You get bear senses from this artifact. You can do a bear hug. You can summon bears. You can turn into a bear. It's very Bjorn from
oh my God.
From Lord of the Rings.
It's also very candidly gay, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
And this specific artifact, the Ursine Avenger Hood, it's in the name. It's Ursine, so you're a bear.
Yeah.
You can reskin this to be a pigeon.
No, okay.
A seahorse.
Yep.
You can make it a dinosaur hood.
Yep.
You can
sure
not only
could.
can you reskin it, but you can take some of the things like bear hug, which will give you the grab condition that you can use as part of your attack. And why not make this like an alligator Avenger Hood where you can do like a tail trip instead.
Or a death roll.
Or a death roll, right. So, just make sure the mechanics aren't breaking anything and you can swap things in and out. But the idea of having an animistic artifact that alters how you interact with the world. Do you remember Jim Carrey's movie a while back called The Mask?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. I don't even know what you've seen and what you haven't seen at this point, but like he had Loki's mask, and when he put it on, he became something. It's that power fixation through an item. So that was I just love it. It's reskinnable. You can swap out the conditions. So the little blurb on this: some items inherit their magic not through an intentional spell or ritual, but through generations of use and belief, slowly accumulating power and intent from those around them. The Ursine Avenger Hood is such an item. After defeating a powerful cave bear, the Ulfin hunter Baruch shaped the bear's head and fur into a helm and cape for himself. Baruch later fell in battle against a Lenorm, successfully slaying the beast before succumbing to its death curse. His helm, soaked in the blood of man and Lenorm, and saturated with the magic of the Lenorm's curse, was claimed by Baruch's daughter, who often told stories about the helm giving her a bear's strength and ferocity, though it was unclear at the time whether this was a boast. Over many generations, the magic of the hood was proven true, and more than that, the magic continued to grow and evolve with ever more Ursine attributes, as the belief and power of each new wearer soaked into the hood. The artifact's potential has continued to grow. Now, those who bond with the generational artifact will discover that the Ursine Avenger Hood continues to grow in power alongside them. So think of superhero origin stories Thor picks up Thor's hammer, and now he's Thor. He's no longer a shitty little accountant at a firm or whatever he was before. It's that idea of like you get the thing, and it helps you become a thing instead of just like training in a professional capacity.
Absolutely.
And that's cool and all, but the idea of like a generational knowledge and how this thing doesn't grow, like you said, over the years, your druid example. How cool would it be to have this in a game where the campaign takes place across generations, and this fucking thing gets passed down through the generations? It's an artifact archetype, an archetype that's linked to a physical construct somewhere in the world, and that is something we haven't had yet. Yeah. All the artifacts, I think, 162 plus, are sort of like intrinsically motivated. I'm studying to do a thing, or I have tapped into a font of power, which lets me do a thing. This is like, I got dressed and now I'm a thing.
Yeah. Because it's tied to an item. What happens if the item gets stolen?
Do you lose the archetype? I mean, that's the question. I haven't seen anything in here about that, but it makes sense that would be the case. Now, if you're a GM, don't be too big a dick. Yeah. But it's a thing. But
also
you can
do it and make it a part of the story.
And what if you do this and you don't go levels 1 through 20 with this? What if you just do dedication plus 2 feats and then you become a juggler? And for your generation, your Ursine Avenger Hood, it only has that much knowledge.
Yeah,
it only has that much knowledge.
Yeah.
And then it passes on and then somebody else takes it the rest of the way.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things I love about the archetypes. You can have your primary class and 3 areas of study throughout your 18 to 20 level career. Mm-hmm. And that makes everybody look different when you line up 100 of you against the wall. So my number 2, Ursine Avenger Hood.
And
did you already do your number 2?
Yeah, remember we
you
had
did,
the same,
and you also did the one. Okay. My number 1, which shouldn't be a surprise to you.
Here we go.
And get comfortable here because I got a lot to say about this. The Mungambian Attendant.
Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go.
This is my favorite thing that Pathfinder has come out with to date. For so many reasons, and I'll get to it.
So I know you own the adventure. Do you plan on reading it, or do you want someone to run it for you?
Strength of Thousands Adventure Path? Yeah, I don't own any of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Not for any special reason. It was just, it's like $30 a book, and I'm already running you guys through Edgewatch.
That's fair.
I'll get it when it's cheap. So, okay, what is a Mungambian Attendant? So this is an archetype. It's in the Character Guide, which is a book, page 101. And the tags you're likely to find in here are Metamagic, Skill, and Concentrate. That's it. These people are wizards par excellence. And they're not just spellcasters, wizards. What's the other one?
Sorcerers?
In your blood? Sorcerers, thank you. You poured heavy. So what they do, their thing, their shtick, is they meld arcane and primal spellcasting to create this hybrid that does really cool things.
Yeah.
So you can be an arcane caster like a wizard or sorcerer that dips into primal spells like a druid or cleric or whatever.
Or vice versa.
Right. You have access to a familiar that becomes a mask. And this is kind of a regular motif throughout the Mungambia. The Mungambia is the name of the academy. Think of like a Hogwarts for Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's a magic school in a sub-Saharan Africanized kind of a place on the globe. So that's kind of that. You got this mask familiar. It turns into a critter and it does familiar things. Yay. Druid wizards for days. And this is what I love about it. Again, I keep coming back to this idea. Can you line up 100 of these bastards on the wall and they look and feel different to you?
Right.
Here you can. Why? Because once you become a Mungambian Attendant, which is your second level dedication feat, you choose immediately from 5 branches of scholarship. So this is like going to school. It's going to college. You pick a major.
It's very reminiscent of the Rune Lord as well.
Of the Rune Lord as well. Only way cooler, which is why this is my number 1 and Rune Lord is not.
Yeah.
So the Rune Lord is kind of like, yay, I get to be envious. Yay, I get to be gluttonous. It's very, what's in the box?
Yeah.
It's very that. That was for you, Nick. So 5 branches of scholarship. Quickly, the Cascade Bearers, they esteem imagination. That's their thing. From the dreams of the most visionary magical theorists to the innovations of creation problem solvers of all stripes. Their feats, their spell selections, the special abilities they get as you progress, they all hover around that area. The Emerald Boughs, which was my character, Naona, in Gabby's game once upon a time, they emphasize camaraderie. family, the sense of community and connection to fellow Mungambians. They also interact with those outside the Mungambia and spread the Academy's message. The Rain Scribes, they value adaptability. That's their thing. Adaptability in thoughts and deeds, as well as a willingness to admit errors and learn from past mistakes, something gamers are reluctant to do sometimes. There are Tempest Sun Mages. They inspire valor, not only the physical courage to stand up for friends and the school, but also the intellectual courage to consider opposing viewpoints and widen one's understanding rather than staying entrenched in a single paradigm. Then there's and I'm totally going to butcher this, the Uzunjari. They understand that knowledge lives in stories passed down through the generations and also is earned every day through personal experience.
That's probably my favorite one out of all of them.
It's the coolest, I think, of the bunch.
Yeah.
And it's also the one when you see a lot of the artwork and people talk about them, they reference them as storytellers.
Yeah.
This is what they're talking about.
Right.
So this is like an archetypal Mungambian. So who are these guys? They're an 8,000-year-old in-world academy, and they study magic, and they've survived so many cataclysms that entire civilizations just have not. They've got an institutional knowledge that goes back 8 millennia, and they keep it in house, and it's just a really cool thing where you can pick an archetype. I can be a wizard Mungambia. I can be a druid, bard, whatever, and belong to these little micro factions within the archetype.
And this is like almost a required archetype for that adventure path, right?
It can be, yeah. I don't, honestly, I haven't read through that AP, so I don't know how much is too much. I'm willing to bet that they offer you things in the
because
I
remember reading that you can.
This came out way before that AP.
Really?
Yeah, the character guide came out at least a year and a half before.
So this was in the character guide.
Yes.
So I got confused. I thought it was the player
somewhere, don't you?
Yeah, no, I have it like right here.
Yeah, I think it was like
what I got confused with was when he said that I thought it came out in the guide, those player packets that come out for them.
Oh, no.
That's what I got confused.
So like the Lost Omen series?
Yep. No, I'm on the same page.
Yeah, this is the second one of those that ever came out.
Gotcha.
So yeah, this is sort of like their first crack at doing that. This is long before Impossible Lands came out, before the other one came out. So yeah, and again, just to bring it back to what we're talking about here, we're talking about spellcasters that are arcane, spellcasters that are primal, and then the merging of those two, what do you call them, of magic?
Yeah.
Not fountains of
schools.
magic, but not schools.
Families.
There are 4 of them.
Oh, yeah. Pillars?
Yeah.
Something like that.
There's divine occult, there's primal, and there's arcane.
My headcanon, they're the pillars of magic, but I think there's a term for it.
And being able to blend those two is super deliciously thematic, and you just don't see it anywhere else.
Absolutely.
The primal is primal and arcane is arcane. That's it. So my number 1 by a country fucking mile, Mungambian attendant. Number 2 doesn't even come close.
I was really surprised neither of us picked Hell Knight.
I could have sworn that was going to be somewhere in yours.
Yeah.
And it kind of, when you didn't have it for your honorable mentions, I knew it was going to be on your list.
Oh, okay.
And it never showed up.
Yeah. I don't know why it didn't. I think that after the Gabby game, what was it called again?
The Jacques game?
No, well, that one too, actually. Yeah.
Age of Ashes for Gabby.
We had Age of Ashes, and then right behind it, we had
Hell's Vengeance.
Hell's Vengeance.
Yeah.
And I think after that, I kind of
burned
just
out
got,
or something?
I don't know. I just got kind of disinterested by the idea of it. I'm sure if I reread the flavor behind all of the archetypes again, I could get excited for it with the right campaign. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Evil games are their own conversation for me.
Yeah, and there's just so many more options to play a not good character, an anti-hero, that before I think they were really interesting because they were one of the only cool anti-heroes you could play. But now that we have so many options for anti-hero, it's like,
at the same time, Hell Knights are something you kind of can only get in Pathfinder.
Absolutely.
The Knights of Takhisis and Dragonlance, sure they exist, but they're not this.
Yeah.
So it's
Hell
really
Knights
cool.
are a very specific flavor.
Yeah. And you got to come here for it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
sweet. All right. I think
that's my number 1, man.
Awesome.
And you got your Rune Lord for number 1, so we should be done at this point.
Sweet. Thanks for hanging out with us, Goblins. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We've stolen your time too much as it is. If you really like the show, we've got a Discord. We'd love to see you in. We hang out there all the time.
People are talking on it every day. We're sharing ideas, creating ideas like the Worm That Walks archetype.
Absolutely. If you want to come hang out and support the show even more, you can join our Patreon. Every month, we're going to be making videos specifically for patrons. We do a shout out. We have a special Patreon section in our Discord for you to talk to us directly. We answer questions like that. It's as cool as we can make it for only $5. We don't have any other tiers for now. We're trying to deliver on that $5 tier as best we can, and then in the future maybe add more. But for right now, it's just that. So we'd love to see you there. Anyway, keep it weird as always.
Thanks, JP. Thanks, everybody. Keep it weird.